What would it look like if we no longer accepted hatred as a norm? What if we no longer accepted using others as a commodity, as acceptable? Jesus, we hear in the verses before our passage for today, did not come to abolish the law, but rather he came to fulfill the law. The law of God is living. It is adaptable. We have heard it said, but what does it mean in a life of following Christ, this law? Jesus is speaking to issues of power when he speaks of divorce. He was speaking to "thou shalt not commit adultery" in a first-century Palestine. What does it mean for us in a 21st century United States? What does that aspect of faithfulness mean now? What does it mean, "thou shalt not murder"? The complexities of this is more than Jesus likely could have imagined in our world today. What does it mean when having my strawberries and chocolate on Valentine's Day, at cheap prices, mind you, means that those who produce them might be forced to work under unsafe work conditions, when we are talking in relation to "thou shalt not commit murder"? It is no longer as simple as not murdering. It means one must not participate in a violent culture. To not commit murder, I must be aware of all the ways decisions might affect others, both those of myself, the actions of my government, and the companies I choose to support. How do their actions bring life or death to others? It is necessary to be aware of the ethical practices. So I, for one, am striving to better educate myself on those practices. That is why we here at Lewis Valley Lutheran Church partner with Fair Trade to offer you coffee and chocolate that are sourced responsibly with folks who are getting paid fair wages for their product. Jesus calls us to a deeper examination of ourselves. It says, "do not commit adultery." But this means more than just cheating on your significant other. It means, as Jesus says, not looking at another with lust. After the Super Bowl 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of shaming of the outfits worn by the halftime performers, Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. That their outfits were too revealing and not appropriate for family viewing. We live under a purity culture, a modesty culture for women, where we slut shame and try to control women's bodies. We live in a culture with dress codes at schools, which are entirely one-sided. The law doesn't say if my eye causes me to sin, I should tell a woman to put on more clothes. It says if my eye causes me to sin, I should tear it out. It is a self-examination and self-accountability. When the law talks about divorce for first-century Palestinians, it is trying to put the ownership on the husband, trying to move away from a system where a woman would be stripped of her financial well-being or societal standing. It was about protecting a woman from being helpless, for a woman who had no power without the men in her life, for she had no rights to anything. In 21st century United States of America, it is the destruction of a relationship that was once loving as something to be mourned. It is about the relationship. All the laws of God are about how we are in relationship with one another. And while we do not view divorce as something to be condemned, we do acknowledge and mourn the loss of relationship between all who know and love the couple, as well as the loss of love between them. Jesus says that one should not swear an oath, because we are liable to fall into lying. Jesus was trying to prevent the spread of lies by saying that you should let your yes mean yes and your no mean no, and anything more than that would be bad. I recently saw a shirt that I believe plays into this notion. It read, "Let's make lying wrong again." Jesus was trying to remind people that lying was wrong. Everything we do is all about living in community and into relationship with others. It's about how we treat one another. We must treat one another with respect and not use them for our own personal gain. Christ came for the love of the world. So it is appropriate that here on Valentine's weekend, we are reminded of our relationships with all other people. We are to be good stewards of our relationships and strive to make sure that all relationships are fair and just. Amen.